Mac installed cameras, dozens of them strategically placed. Every room, every corridor, every dark corner now under surveillance. He watched the monitors, a silent observer in his own home. Days turned into weeks. The cameras recorded nothing but emptiness. His unease began to dissipate. Maybe it was all in his head. Then one night it happened. He was reviewing the day's footage, fast-forwarding through hours of mundane activity. And then, a flicker, a movement at the edge of the frame. He rewound, slowed the playback. His breath caught in his throat. It was there. A figure, almost translucent, moving through the hallway. It moved with an unnatural fluidity, gliding rather than walking. He watched in horrified fascination as it vanished into another room. A room he knew was empty. The camera saw what he couldn't. They captured the fleeting glimpses, the whispers and the static, the things that existed just beyond the realm of human perception. He became obsessed, spending every waking moment glued to the monitors. He saw the figure repeatedly, always in the background, always just out of focus. He tried to rationalize it, a trick of the light, a reflection, a glitch in the system. But deep down he knew the truth. He wasn't alone. He was being watched. The mansion, once a source of comfort, now felt oppressive. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of wind in the trees outside sent shivers down his spine. He was a prisoner in his own home, trapped in a nightmare that only the cameras could see. He began to notice other things. At first it was just a feeling, a prickling at the back of his neck, a sense that he was being watched even when the rooms were empty and silent. Strange noises emanating from the speakers, bursts of static that seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat, as if the house itself was alive and listening. Whispers, static, the faint sound of breathing. Sometimes so soft he wondered if he was imagining it, other times so clear it sent chills down his spine. He would hear his own name being called, soft and indistinct, as if from a great distance, echoing through the empty halls, always just out of reach. He started seeing himself on the cameras, doing things he couldn't remember doing, walking through rooms at odd hours, his movements slow and unnatural, walking into rooms, then standing motionless for hours, staring blankly at walls, as if waiting for something or someone to appear. Sleeping with his eyes open, caught on camera in the dead of night, his gaze fixed on nothing, unblinking and eerily still. The line between reality and the digital world began to blur. Sometimes he would catch glimpses of things on the monitors that weren't there when he looked in person. He couldn't be sure what was real anymore. The screens became his only window to the world, but even they could not be trusted. Was he losing his mind? Or was something else at work, something that thrived in the static and shadows? Or was the entity, whatever it was, somehow manipulating the footage, manipulating him, twisting his sense of self and reality? He stopped leaving the house. He stopped answering calls, isolating himself from the outside world, afraid of what he might find, or what might find him. His world shrunk to the confines of his study, the walls lined with monitors, his only companions the ghostly images flickering across the screens, each one a reminder of how alone he truly was. He was teetering on the edge of an abyss, and he didn't know how to pull himself back. The static was no longer just noise, it was a presence, and it was closing in. The entity grew bolder. What started as fleeting glimpses in the periphery soon became unmistakable presences, as if it wanted to be seen. It began appearing in the foreground of the footage, lingering in doorways, its form becoming, slightly clearer with each appearance. Each time it seemed to study the camera, almost aware of my gaze. It was tall and gaunt, its limbs unnaturally long, its features shrouded in darkness. The way it moved was unnatural, gliding more than walking, as if it belonged to the shadows themselves. But it never showed its face. No matter how many angles I tried, its identity remained hidden, always just out of reach. I felt this strange connection to it, you know? Like it was aware of me too. like we were both participants in some silent, unspoken game, like a sense of dread and fascination all tangled up together. I couldn't look away, even though every instinct screamed at me to turn off the monitors. I started talking to it through the cameras, asking it questions, demanding answers. My voice echoed in the empty rooms, hoping for any sign of acknowledgement. But the entity, well, it just stayed silent. Its only response was that ever-present static filling the air. The silence was almost worse than a reply. One night I woke to the sound of my own voice coming from the speakers. It was as if the house itself was speaking back to me, using my words. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, and looked at the monitor on my nightstand. The room felt colder, the air thick with something unseen. There I was, lying in bed, eyes closed, speaking in this low, guttural voice. Words I couldn't understand, as if someone or something was speaking through me. Words that honestly chilled me to the bone. I felt like I was hearing a message meant for someone or something else. I was no longer just a watcher. The roles had shifted, and I could feel it in every shadow that flickered across the screens. I was being watched, being recorded, being used. The watcher had become the watched, and there was no turning back. The footage began to glitch more frequently. Images would freeze, then rewind, sometimes even play in reverse. Faces would, distort. Voices would warp and crackle. I'd see these glimpses of other places, other times. Faces I didn't recognize, just staring back at me with these hollow eyes. The static grew louder, more insistent, until it was honestly all I could hear. It was almost like the entity was trying to communicate with me, to break through the barrier of the screen and reach me in the real world. But what was it trying to say? I felt a presence in the house now, this coldness that just seeped into my bones. I'd wake in the dead of night, feeling the weight of unseen eyes on me. I was living in this constant state of paranoia, every shadow a threat, every sound a whisper from the void. I stopped sleeping. I just subsisted on coffee and adrenaline, my eyes constantly scanning the monitors, searching for any sign of the entity. I lost track of time, days and nights blurring together in this haze of exhaustion and fear. My reflection in the black screens, it kind of became my only companion. But then I noticed something strange about my reflection. It didn't always match my movements. Sometimes it would lag behind, like it had a life of its own. And sometimes it would just disappear altogether, leaving me staring into this black void. I reached out to touch the screen, my fingers brushing against the cold glass. And for a fleeting moment, I saw it. My reflection blinked. But it wasn't me blinking, it was the entity, its face superimposed over mine, its eyes staring directly at me. The line between observer and observed, between reality and the digital world, had vanished completely. It was as if the boundaries that once separated my thoughts from the world outside had dissolved, leaving me suspended in a strange, in-between state. The mansion, once a place of comfort, now felt like a labyrinth of echoes and shadows, each corner hiding a fragment of my fading self. I was trapped in a digital purgatory, my existence reduced to these flickering images on a screen. Every moment replayed endlessly, as if my life had become nothing more than a series of ghostly recordings, looping over and over with no escape. I wasn't even sure anymore if I was in control of my own actions, or if I was just a puppet, dancing to the tune of the entity that now shared my life. My hands moved, but I couldn't tell if the thoughts were mine or if they belonged to something else, something watching from the darkness. I watched in numb horror as the entity, now fully visible in the footage, began to mimic my movements, to speak with my voice. It was as if my very essence was being copied, my identity slipping away with every gesture it mirrored. It was like it was consuming me, erasing my identity, replacing me piece by piece. Each shadow that crept along the walls seemed to take a part of me with it, leaving behind only emptiness and silence. I looked away from the monitors for the first time in days, my gaze falling upon a mirror on the opposite wall. The room felt colder, the air heavier, as if the act of turning away had broken some unspoken rule. I stared at my reflection, expecting to see my own weary features staring back at me. My heart pounded, hoping for some sign that I was still there, that I hadn't been completely overtaken. But the face in the mirror, it wasn't mine. It was a stranger's, twisted and unfamiliar, staring back with hollow eyes, and in that moment I realized I was truly lost. The entity smiled, its eyes cold and empty. It reached out from the mirror, its hand passing right through the glass as if it were water. I screamed, a primal scream of terror and despair, as the entity pulled me into the mirror, into the digital abyss that had become my prison. The monitors flickered, the static reaching a deafening crescendo, and then silence. The only sound left was the hum of the machines, recording nothing but emptiness. The entity was gone. I was gone. Only the watcher remained, its cold, unblinking eyes staring out from the screen, just waiting for its next victim. What if only the camera could see what lives with you? Would you trust your eyes or the footage? The answer, maybe, is more terrifying than you could ever imagine.